Welcome to the Bliss Builders podcast, a podcast about mental health
and personal growth
with Kristina von der Heid
and Sandra Diebel.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Bliss Builders podcast. My name is Kristina and on the other side you see my lovely co-host Sandra. And today we're going to talk about the topic of self-acceptance or acceptance in general, especially in regard to accepting things we cannot change. I think I'm gonna start with a little question to Sandra.
Oh.
Sandra, when did you first get in contact with the whole topic of self-acceptance? Do you remember?
Yeah, you asked me the question earlier and I tried to think about it a little bit. Well, that's a pretty hard one. Maybe it was, let's say, in my childhood, about the beauty topic or the outside look. So we were talking about this in a previous episode about self-doubts and negative beliefs, and there was the belief that because I was a bit more chubby, that I'm not beautiful and unattractive to others, and I kind of had to accept that more or less at some point, or change it, but at this point accept it and to transform that actually, or use this negative energy, however you wanna see it, to put it somewhere else. So in this, regarding to this, I put it more into, let's say, my career and this education and career pathway. So I thought, okay, I accept that I'm not that beautiful. I accept that, and I won't be the most beautiful person in the room. That's okay, but I'm gonna find another way to that. So this was maybe the first time I got in touch with that when I think about it. Especially about self-acceptance, like from myself. And then it was really a thing that accomplished me probably over the years, and something that was built up more and more. And there I really have to say, with consuming mindful content of it. And so, because you are more the tool person than me, but probably with this acceptance, by hearing others saying or talking about, hey, that's actually okay to, hear, feel some feelings, etc., accept things that are maybe also not perfect. Actually, when with this keyword, there's something coming to my mind. One of my previous bosses, something she used to say was, perfectionism is the death of everything good.
Interesting. Why? Because
I'm a person that is very much into details, and in this time I was into graphic design and marketing, but this was more focused on the graphic part, where I keep changing and editing over and over and over, that it has to be perfect, and this could be maybe better, or this could be maybe better, or this, or maybe we're gonna find a better picture, and there always will be a better version. But the thing is, you're gonna spend so much time on seeking this perfection that you maybe also miss that you already have a good solution. And this is definitely a sentence that is still in the back of my mind. Not always that easy to live, but definitely something that I remember. And where I nowadays also try, especially, for example, with our podcast things, what comes maybe along with the fast bed wrong method you were talking in the very beginning. So I really tried to keep this in mind and say, okay, maybe it's not perfect, and because I also have so many styles, especially with looks, with graphics, etc. And I love that, and I love to play around. And there are so many possibilities. So yes, there would be maybe a better option. There would be maybe a better sentence. But the thing is, at some point, you also have to accept it how it is and work with that, and also go out with that, publish that, get along, because you can spend hours and hours and your whole life with changing these little details when you don't accept it, and miss the opportunities maybe you would have already with what you have.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think it's a self, like it's the same thing also, like personal development, because like I remember when I first got into the whole thing, I mean, like I started really early when I was a kid, like when I was 11 years old, and I got into this whole improvement, self-development.
11 years,
And
yeah, so early with everything. Oh my goodness. Crazy.
yeah, but my journey is slow. So
Slow but consistent.
yeah,
The
but the thing
turtle
is,
rings the race.
no, the thing is, throughout the whole process, what I did not realize for a very, very long time is that if you are focused constantly on improving and healing, there is never an end to it, because you will constantly find new things to improve and heal, because it can always be better. And only 2 years ago did I realize something new about this in regards to self-acceptance, which was a quote which is also in my book, When the Bookshelf is Mocking You. I literally
Available on Amazon.
yes, I found it such a good quote that I'm kind of like sharing it with everyone. It's by a person called Kobe. Oh fuck, Kobe Campbell. I nearly forget the name. And it's I'm really bad at quoting, so stay with me here. It is a paraphrase from what I remember, because I've not written it down at the, well, I have, but I've not I don't have it in front of me. But it's basically, healing isn't becoming the best version of yourself, but letting the worst version of yourself be loved. And that's, I'm going to repeat it once more, if it's even correct, but healing isn't becoming the best version of yourself. Healing is letting the worst version of yourself be loved. And I feel like that speaks completely to self-acceptance, because what I did not realize is you're only really in the state of being healed once you kind of accept yourself with everything, with all the flaws. And if you cannot only accept it but love it, it's like a miracle, because in moments where I'm completely there, in moments where I completely accept myself, because the thing is, like, there's only moments where you can do that, and it's not just because you accepted yourself one day that it will stay with you, because old patterns always come back up. And they're kind of like, well, but you could do that better, and well, you could improve here a little bit, which is true. You can always improve, and it's great to strive for something better. But in those moments where I completely loved myself, and when you completely love yourself, like the worst version, and the worst version you can imagine, it takes away pretty much all of your fears, because if you can love yourself being sick, broke, homeless, lonely, a horrible person, anything you can imagine, if you can love yourself in the worst state you can possibly imagine and still be kind to yourself, then there is nothing to fear, because we don't fear situations. We fear our own feelings about those situations, and we fear our own judgment about those situations. For example, every time when I'm not completely conscious, when I'm not completely aware and not in the present moment, I get afraid, for example, of running out of money. I think a lot of people know that feeling, or the fear of having bills to pay or whatever. And when I'm not present, I get afraid of that. But when I'm present and when I really truly love myself, I know that, like, even if I run out of money, there's plenty of solutions always. And I am a very creative person, so I can rely on me. B, even if I run out of money, there's nothing terrible or nothing worse about it than I can have in situations right now. For example, like it's all
Please
about the
explain it
feeling.
to our listeners your
Yes,
situation right now.
say it again.
You said there can't be anything worse than your situation right now.
Yeah, no, I mean in the present moment, everything is happening in the present moment. So I can be in the present moment, feel sadness and shame about, I don't know, kind of like knocking over a flower pot, and that sadness and shame can be exactly the same feeling that I'm feeling when I run out of money. So what I'm trying to explain, I'm not sure if that's a good example, but what I'm trying to explain is that basically we feel things in the moment. And even if you're broken homeless and you don't have any money anymore, it doesn't mean that you have to be in a terrible state emotionally. There will be phases where you just maybe sit on the lawn and enjoy the sunshine and everything is fine, even though you don't have anything. So what we are afraid of are the feelings and the thoughts about situations. So once you've completely, or once you're practicing loving yourself, no matter what, loving the worst version of yourself, there's nothing to fear. Because, for example, if you're sitting there being ashamed because you kind of like let yourself get into a situation where you don't have money anymore, and I don't know, like this whole shame thing, which is something I'm personally kind of like afraid of, because like if I run out of money, then there's like shame involved, shame of either asking people for help, which is still in like not completely worked through, and so it's still a topic of shame, because then I have to ask for help and then possibly ask my family, which I want to avoid, or I have to get a job which I don't like, which I also try to avoid. So there's a lot of things, and the thing is, if like I'm trying to avoid the feeling of shame or the feeling of frustration, but in the moments where I have shame, when I then am kind to myself and be like, hey, I love you, I'm here for you, it's not that bad, there's nothing to be ashamed about, because there technically isn't. There's no shame behind like asking people for help. There's no shame um in doing that, and technically that's all fears, like nothing like it has happened. So it's all in the future, in my worst case scenario future. And whenever I come into the present moment and I'm kind of like, well, I'm kind to myself now, and if I am in like a negative emotion and I'm kind to myself, then there's literally nothing to fear, because yes, I might cry, but I'm gonna like, have myself. And this self-acceptance is kind of like always connected also to self-love, because yeah, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it just, true self-acceptance can take away all of your fears, because then there's nothing to fear anymore, because, well, in my opinion, we fear feelings and not necessarily what's happening. And a lot of the times the feelings we feel are also based on our thoughts. Because if you're always staying in the present moment, there's also not really anything to fear if you're accepting the present moment. Oh, I once listened to a really, really great speech by some guy that I forgot the name of, so I'm very sorry for all our listeners. But it was basically about the fact that all of us humans only suffer because we're in resistance to what is. Basically, we are there like little toddlers, and we're like, no, it shouldn't be like that. Although it is like that. And he was like, the suffering comes from not accepting how it is in the present moment. No, this person shouldn't be like that. This shouldn't be like that. This shouldn't be like that. The driver shouldn't be that slow. The person in front of me shouldn't like say that to me. Stuff like that. And that's
I would
the
have a
cause of.
formula for that. Do you know the formula of contentment or happiness? What would be the, I'm not sure it was contentment or happiness equals expectation minus reality. So the expectation, how it should be, and then you compare it to the reality, how it is, and depending how good they match, this is actually the result of your happiness, of your contentment. Because if the reality matches the expectation, you are content. If the reality is better than your expectations, you're fucking happy. If the reality is less than your expectations, then you're unhappy.
Yes.
What
But
makes
if you can
very much sense for me.
It does. But if you can practice to literally just not be in resistance and just be like, it is what it is, you kind of like stop suffering. So
and you
because
stop actually putting your expectations somewhere high. What is, for example, for me, something very hard. It took me a long. I'm still not there, but it's getting better, definitely. But it is a very hard process for me, the expectations. And at least over the time, I got better in lowering, well, let's say, how do I get this together? What I try more also to avoid disappointment is actually exactly what you say, is not thinking too much about the future, about the expectation, how it should be. Ideally, some of us can imagine quite good in their head, and it should look exactly like this, and it should happen exactly like that, and the person should say exactly that. If you are able, and this takes a long time in practice, to lower that, or even can get rid of that, and be more in the enjoyment, like you said, of the present moment, and say, okay, let's see, I take whatever comes, let's say you plan an excursion, for example, and you think, and then it will be a beautiful sunny day, and we're gonna have the picnic there, and everything is nice, and we're gonna have a nice conversation, some deep talk, etc. And then it rains on this day, for example. And this is already something you can't change. It is what it is, right? And if everything, and this can ruin your whole excursion or your whole day, maybe, because oh fuck, and now everything it's not possible anymore like that, and we can't do the picnic, etc. So it's about then the acceptance of, okay, well, it's different than expected, but making also the best of the situation, accepting the here and now, and stay in the present moment and say, okay, there is no sunshine, what could we do else? So this, especially this, accept what you can't change. And I think I hopped a little bit from one topic to another. So one thing would be to even don't have too much expectations for the future before it even happens, because then you imagine something, and if it doesn't match the expectations, it's more likely that you are disappointed. So this was a big topic for me in the past. And the other thing is the acceptance of the here and now, you said, and dealing with it the best you can, because like the weather, that's something you can't change, definitely, but you can make the most out of it. And instead of the picnic blanket, you get maybe your raincoat coat and your gum boots, and you're gonna hop around in the rain and maybe also have some fun, right? So making the best out of every situation.
Yeah, I feel like in regard to expectations, the most blissful solution is pretty much to stay in the present moment, do things with as much joy as you can, enjoy things and enjoy the process of things without the outcome in mind. Because whenever we are in the outcome, we have expectations, and therefore a lot of the times what a lot of people do, and what I'm guilty of as well, is in your head already kind of like expecting negative things. So
also a good point.
it's like a very bad habit my mind has, that my mind, to protect me, will try to find scenarios, worst case scenarios, to play through, so I'm prepared in case that happens, and I have already like stuff to say and things to do, and like kind of like expecting the worst, which I think is not very healthy and a bad habit. And well, I'm trying to override it and get more be more in the present moment. But if my mind has to think about things, because that is something I've been struggling with recently, which is my mind never shuts up. Not never. There is situations in which it shuts up if it's if it needs a lot of focus. So if I need to do something that requires a lot of focus, it's quiet, it's silent. But 90% of the time, it wants something to think about, and I have to give it something to think about. And the thing is, if I don't manage my brain will go automatically into bad habits, like thinking about worst case scenarios, or I don't know, into or just negative thought patterns. And the thing is, I think it's probably also because I haven't done affirmations, or I haven't really managed my thoughts more strictly for a very long time. Because I know that literally all it takes is me sitting down in the morning and deciding to think good thoughts. And then when I actively think good thoughts, then usually I get into a momentum. And after a few minutes, that's kind of like directing the whole day. And then, it's like a train that started running, and then all the other thoughts just come because your brain is like...
I remember you were saying that before you left Brisbane, yeah?
Yeah, the thing is just it's so so funny how fast it falls back into things. It's a bad habit that's not gone yet, but
it doesn't come from overnight quite often, so it takes a while to implement things and to stay with things. I think everyone can relate to that. There are very, very rare, very few people in the world who has the discipline from the beginning to keep going with everything.
Yeah, because I think the problem I think that which most people have, and what I see is, I know exactly what to do. I'm just not doing it. I know that I just have to sit there and literally just consciously in the morning when I wake up, choose a few good thoughts. Something general, like everything is working out, always working out for me. Something like, I don't know, universe, God, higher self, whatever, show me how good it can get today. Everything always flows to me. Things work out easily. Intentions, even setting intentions is a positive form, like positive form of thinking. So for example, setting an intention for the next hour, like what would I like to happen? Also playing the game, what would I like to happen today? What would be the best possible outcome? And practicing that, being like, what would be the best thing that could happen today? And then like really playing with it and be like, well, someone could gift me their house. So what? Like, and just having fun with it, because technically it's your game, so you can make up the rules, so you can go as wild as you want to, and there's you don't need to stick to reality. You can literally just do that for fun, just because it's more positive than ruminating about things in old habits and making up worst case scenarios. Why not make best case scenarios up? But here we come back to self-acceptance. As long as I'm mad about myself having those thoughts, those negative thoughts, every time I become aware of them, if I'm just mad, I'm going to have more negative thoughts. So the only thing to interrupt that cycle is be like accepting, be like, okay, I've become aware. I accept that I have thought, well, bad habit thoughts again. And now I can consciously choose to change it. I think acceptance is a great way to break things, like to make a break, to take a break from a habit. As soon as you, or like even in regards to self, once you've accepted yourself the way you are, you can actually improve. Because, for example, if you're mad at bad habits like smoking, drinking, or eating too much, and as long as you're mad at yourself, you cannot really change it, because you're constantly focused on that. You constantly focus on the negative traits. But once you've accepted yourself, and it's like, well, it is what it is, I still have that bad habit of doing this or that, you can actually refocus, because you kind of like let go of this fighting against it. It's more like, okay, it is what it is, but now I can actually try tiny steps to get in a better direction. I can eat a little bit more healthier foods. I can drink a glass of water between every alcoholic drink. I can smoke a few less cigarettes. Like, and you can start being like, well, it is what it is, but you can start implementing small things because you're not fighting it anymore. So I feel like self-acceptance, gives you kind of like a break to change directions. It's like you're on the negative train, going full speed into like the direction of like, oh, everything is shit, and I'm still smoking, I still have that bad habit, I still have that bad habit, everything is shit, and you're full on in the wrong direction basically. And if you accept where you are, it's kind of like hitting the brakes on that train, and then once you've hit the brakes on that train, you can consciously decide to, okay, I'm gonna turn the train, well, not turn the train around, but let the train go in the opposite direction and choose more positive things. So I feel like acceptance is kind of like a great way to stop negative momentum that has built.
I actually had this before we started recording this episode, as well as I had a little argument with my boyfriend. I told my parents some big news that is quite heavy for them to to deal with, let's say that. And so they're people around me that are very important for me feeling bad or not good at the moment, and yes, I'm involved with that. And I felt very shit in the morning as well about it. And thought, oh, should I also have to record the podcast? And I really want to do that. And I feel it in my stomach, this negative feelings and everything. And yeah, what I did then was actually trying to empty a little bit the brain, the cup, brave through. Then, like you said, the acceptance behind and said, yeah, okay. It is definitely not my best mood at the moment. It is what it is. But let's have a look at the situations, actually, as neutral as possible and as rational as possible without the emotions. So I still don't think that I did something wrong in both situations. Maybe there were things that other people would have like different, or that there is a communication issue. Yes, absolutely. And this causes some, let's say, negative feelings and irritation, probably on one part. And yeah, just with my parents, it was just a bit of a shock because these are big news, and it has to do with me, but it's not that I actually did something big wrong. It is what it is, and it just will take time, and there is nothing I can really change at the moment about that. And with being realistic about those things and having also a look about myself. So, and I'm at least definitely nowadays a person, I take the responsibility if I've done a mistake or something, even if it's shitty and hard. But I think, okay, that was my fault, okay, and this might be even a more intense bad feeling. But thinking about, okay, did I do my best? And maybe with the news of my parents, I could have chosen another timing. They've told me I was not that aware of that. So yeah, okay. I accept that it was maybe not the best decision. I have my reasons why I did it like that. And they were definitely good in my head, in my thoughts, that it's different for them. I can understand now, especially explained a little bit to me. And yeah, when they explained it to me, I think, okay, yeah, fair enough. Now I see it. I see what you see, and I'm very sorry for that. But I can't turn back time. So that's definitely something I have to accept and we have to deal with. And yeah, what you can do is now the best out of the situations. And in this situation, there is not much else than let it calm down a bit and let the time come over. And with the other situation, probably also time is a good thing. And then some love and caring communication, open about it, and try to solve it, especially when the emotions are high. It's a very good recommendation to step a bit back, cool down, and try to leave the emotions as good as possible out of the equation, about the solving process. Still understanding feelings and emotion, this is very important. Expressing them, so what you feel in which situation, or if you do this or that, it makes me feel blah blah blah. That's quite important to talk about the feelings and emotions, but not in an emotional state. And I think this is a big point in a lot of arguments is emotional topic for yourself in emotional state. So this is why, people starting screaming and yelling and whatever, and I can't take myself out of that completely. So
Yeah, but once again, there's the solution. Like, you either accept it the way it is, like, well, it is what it is, I'm getting screamed at, or you change it by like being like, okay, let's maybe talk a little bit calmer, let's calm down, let's breathe, like let's breathe together, or you leave the situation, be like, okay, maybe let's come back, like maybe let's give it 30 minutes to calm down and then we talk again. And once again, they're like, acceptance is still a good way to go, because in the first moment you have to accept it, otherwise you will be even madder and then nothing good can come from it. But like, once you've accepted, okay, we're in a situation, we're screaming at each other possibly, or stuff is not going the way it should in the conversation, people are getting emotional, people are getting upset, and then being like, okay, that's the situation as is, what can I change, or is it better to leave it for now and come back?
Yeah, absolutely. And there you actually summarized, I don't know where it actually comes from, but I can definitely underline it: love it, leave it, or change it.
Yeah. Change, it sounds really good, but a lot of the times to love the situation is on a whole nother level than just to accept it. I think acceptance is definitely easier than love it, because like, yeah, loving a situation can be hard. It's a different situation if you think, like, if you see I remember seeing that quote on a postcard when I was a child, and I think I had it at my door. It said like, love it, leave it, or change it. And I remember that I saw it in a different perspective than I do now, which is kind of like, if you're not loving it, then either try to change it or leave it. So basically that, like, if you're not loving the situation, change it or leave it. But not even trying to actually love something. But I do think that accepting situations is helpful.
Actually, when you're saying this, it brings up in me that first, yes, okay, it might be hard to love everything instead of just accepting. But on the other hand, if you are, if you try to reach a blissful life, let's say, let's take this as our to-be situation. You are trying to get a blissful life, what means actually that acceptance, in my opinion, would not be enough. Because when you just accept it, you are okay with it, all right? You can handle it, you can deal with it, that's all right. What is definitely the first step, but it won't bring you to a fulfilled, blissful life, in my opinion.
And I think that comes back to the expectations, because the reason why I think acceptance is a good first step is because it takes the pressure out of loving and being joyful about everything. Because I've been there where I was kind of like, I want to love every minute of my life all the time, and when I'm not loving it, then I have to change it or leave it. But that a lot of the times leaves you with endless situations that you would have to leave or change. So a lot of the times it can be exhausting to constantly have to change and change and change because you're not loving it yet. So a lot of the times accepting things as they are right now can take off some of that pressure and some of that resistance and make it easier to actually come to a place where you then love the thing. And like sometimes it's like baby steps. So I'm not saying that like the end, or well, the goal isn't to love things. I mean, like I'm always, and I think another good thing to do in that regard is to look around you and focus on things that you already love as is. Like, I love being in nature where I am right now. I love that I have a phone with a stable internet connection, or stable enough to have this conversation. I love that I can sit outside, and yes, it's a little bit fresh and cold, which is why I look like this because I don't have nicer winter clothes with me. But I love that I can sit outside. I love that the weather is good. I love that, and you can look and focus on all the things that you already love as they are. And the more you focus on the stuff that you already love about your life, the more blissful it becomes. And then the few situations that that you then have to change or leave, or can't change and can't leave, and then if you accept it, like the few things that might not be as you want them to be, I think that just plays into a very blissful life. But a good way to make your everyday existence and to make the present moment blissful, because the thing is, you can only have a blissful life if you're blissful in the moment. And to become blissful in the moment, the best thing you can do is literally focus on all the things you love. Focus on the stuff that is great already, like on the things that are already pretty amazing. And the things you enjoy. Like I enjoy us talking like immensely. It's such a nice thing to do, because it's also such a great reminder. And I think that's why I love those conversations so much, because not only are we sharing our knowledge and our experiences and what works for us with our listeners, but it's also kind of like a great reminder for ourselves to be like, oh yeah, let's come back into the present moment. Oh yeah, in this present moment. I mean, like in this present moment, you're sitting in your beautiful bus that you built yourself, where you yes, that is like that has all the work you put into it. It's cozy, it's nice. You're in a safe environment right now. You're relaxed, you're comfy. And every time we focus back into the present moment and let the past be in the past, we're blissful.
It's true. And this is something I've learned during my travels, for example, to be more and actually what change it makes. I really tried it as kind of an exercise, because I really tend to be with my head completely somewhere else, where my body is kind of, for the situation I am in. Or I think about how it could be even nicer, or how it could have turned out. And if I think about that, I'm that the chance is way bigger that I'm disappointed in the here and now.
Mhm.
And I really try this exercise of no, stop that fucking thought. Oh, we have to beep a lot in this episode. Sorry. I have to stop the thought and be here, and exactly what you said. Focus on the thing and have a look around. Okay, what is great at the moment? What do I love in this moment? And think about the things. Oh, I'm actually with great people, and it's nice weather, and we are jumping into the fresh sea, or whatever, and blend out a little bit. There are always pros and cons, always 100%, and no one is satisfied with everything, but it's the focus about where do we want to have to focus. And I think you summarized it very, very good before, coming from being present, gratitude. Actually, I would love to make another episode on that. Gratitude, very important. With the gratitude, you accept the present moments. First acceptance, then the gratitude, then the love, then the blissful life.
No, the blissful life is always now. So I feel like in every moment, where we're joyful,
Yeah,
we're
that's
already
true.
blissful.
Yeah, okay, sorry, that's true. That was not right articulated. Being aware of your blissful life. Being conscious about it.
Being being aware of the bliss you have in the moment. Because the thing is, we can only experience life in the moment. So the more blissful moments we have, the more blissful our life is. And we have to recognize it. Because the thing is, you have to become aware enough in the moment to recognize when something is blissful and be like, wow, right now I feel really, really comfy. Right now, I hear the birds tweeting. I hear the wind going through the trees. I like right now in this moment, my body feels great. Right now in this moment, I have like a great and really in the present moment, observe where you are. If it is a moment like this, because I remember becoming present in a lot of moments where things are different, like working in hospitality and you have like several tables screaming at you and the manager being pissed at you, and in those moments becoming present is a hard thing to do because if you're getting screamed at from like different sides in that moment, it's kind of like and that's what I mean, like in those moments the only thing
trick for that?
Acceptance. It comes down to self-acceptance. It's like self-acceptance, like accepting, well, I did the best I could, and sometimes the best I could is not good enough for other people. Accepting, well, it is what it is. They're currently screaming at me, like everyone is mad at me. Accepting, like to be fair, in those situations, it also helps, like if you're that present, to become aware and accept what is happening. Then the next cool step, if you are that aware, would be to remember that a lot of those people always, a lot of the time, project how they feel about themselves onto others. So for example, because if I am in a restaurant and I have to wait for my food for a certain time, and I see that there's a lot of things going on, I'm very patient and understanding. I would never scream at a waitress. But then there's people who probably had very high expectations, then came into a place that was very busy, still decided to stay, didn't decide to go somewhere else. So they're a lot of times angry at themselves because they know the place was already busy. And then we usually, like in hospitality, people usually warn the customer and be like, well, you can sit down, but you will probably have to wait a while. And then people are like, no, it's fine. And then they realize, no, it's not fine because they don't want to wait that long. And it's hard to estimate how long people are going to wait. So then usually they're mad at themselves. So if you can become aware that like a lot of the feelings people have are because they're projecting their own feelings about themselves onto others, or they're having imaginary negative thoughts that you're like about you. So basically, a lot of the times when we get mad at people, we don't actually get mad at the situation. We get mad at what our brain tells us that other person thinks about us. So I've talked to people about that, and they've explained to me what was going on in their head when they were mad. So for example, which I find super interesting, they were like, I was thinking that you were intentionally ignoring our table. Mm-hmm. And that pissed them off. It was not the waiting time. It was because they thought that I intentionally ignored their table. Okay. Which, of course, is not true. But I think that is a is a great example in that situation. But acceptance that like sometimes you can't change the circumstances and you can't get out of it, and there's also sometimes there is nothing to appreciate around. Like the only thing you can appreciate is yourself in that moment. Be like, okay, I appreciate that I'm still standing. I appreciate that I'm not crying yet, although everyone is screaming at me. I appreciate, like, if you can get to that state, I would say you're already a master. But 90% of the
Validate yourself.
yeah, if you can get to the state where you can appreciate yourself and be like, well, the only blissful thing around is me, that is like already mastery of the skill. Which, to be fair, especially like when I was in hospitality, I was not in that state. My real good accomplishment in situations like that, where everyone's like everything is literally just going to shit. My accomplishment in those situations was to find acceptance, and not like acceptance was the best thing, because then at least I would not also get emotional like everyone around me, because it doesn't help if everyone's emotional and screaming at each other. Well, it will find an end at some point. But sometimes it's an escalation you actually don't want to see happen. So and I feel like also in regard to self-acceptance, you can learn to love yourself a lot more once you've accepted certain parts of yourself. So I remember when I was a teenager, like 13, 14, probably like most people, I was not too happy with my body. First of all, because it was changing. And I wasn't like, that was the only time in my life that I wasn't happy with my body, because as a child I was happy in my body, and as a teenager I was suddenly wasn't. But once I found acceptance of it, like of the way it was like a stop, and then it kind of like switched around, and I started actually like loving and appreciating my body, and appreciating how it looks, and realizing also that I actually don't really care too much about what others think. And another thing was also that I did an experiment, which was like, because I read in a book, when I was a teenager, I read in a book that how you see yourself will be reflected by others. So if you see yourself and if you think about yourself that you're like sexy and that you're really good looking, you radiate that to the outside world, and then people around you will mirror that. And I made an experiment when I was a teenager where, well, first I would see myself as the way I did at the time, be like, I'm not, I don't know, I'm not toned enough, I'm not skinny enough, I don't have like this amount of, I don't know, I don't have that kind of hair, I don't have this, I don't have that, like being in the lack of things. And I would walk around and people would ignore me, they would not witness me, they would make bad comments about me, they would be like, I can see your stain on your shirt. And then I would make the opposite, which is like be like kind of like telling myself, well, I'm sexy as hell, I have a great figure, everyone like, I don't know, everyone is admiring me, whatever, like whatever you want to go with. And I literally walked outside, I got compliments, I get comments like, wow, you look so good today, you're rating. And it's so funny how like a simple change in mind will also change everything that comes to you that day. And that kind of helped me with the whole self-acceptance, because I realized it does not matter. The only thing that actually like, it doesn't matter how your body looks like, it doesn't matter, like your weight doesn't matter, none of it matters. It matters how you see yourself, because once you see yourself in a good light, the world around you will reflect that. And yes, for example, if you post content, and yes, there might be bad comments, but when you check the comments, you won't see them. So like, it's the same thing, like when you see yourself as sexy, as beautiful, as great, as good looking, whatever, as intelligent, and you walk around, there might be people who look at you like with disgust, but either your brain will interpret it as, oh, they're looking at me and they actually like me, like a lot of men do, which I think is very funny, because there's a lot of guys that think that you're interested in them because you're looking at them. And I think that's a confidence example that we all should take as a positive example of the way you see yourself will be reflected. And even if it's not the case, your brain will literally interpret it in a good way, or it will just ignore it and completely focus on something else. And I feel like that really helped me with like self-acceptance, because it's just not that big of a deal. But like once you've accepted your body as is, you can actually focus on things like, well, your mindset and other things. And also in regards to mind, I feel like self-acceptance or accepting things as they are always brings you back into the state of relaxation, in a state of ease. Because the thing is, like, as long as you're fighting against your thoughts, against your bad habits, against the things you're doing, I mean, like, I think we had that conversation in the last episodes, that you are more on the outside, while I, like, a lot of my life is happening in my brain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can literally sit around all day, not doing anything, not moving a centimeter, and having a whole life experience in my head.
Yeah,
which can be positive or negative. Yeah, you can attest to that. And for you, it's more like actually doing things. You're more in the outside material world. But it does not matter, because in both cases, there's things, we need to accept. And for me, I think it's a lot more on a mental plane, like accepting the thoughts that sometimes I cannot stop, accepting, like, coming back into the present moment, accepting the habits that are not changed, accepting, loving the worst version. And and for you, it's probably more accepting circumstances and situations as they are.
Yeah. A lot of things, I would say, when it comes to emotions as well. Emotions of myself, emotions of others. That's also probably emotion of others, because it's one thing to control yours, but you can't control others.
Oh yeah.
How they react, for example. And I catch myself a couple of times and I think, I don't like this reaction. I want to have another one, or I was expecting another one, or why you are like that? You know? And it's like, I can't understand it, or I would do it completely different.
Yeah.
But that's you and that's them. So even if it's hard, and I personally, yes, depending on how different it is from my expression or from myself or whatever, I sometimes need some time by myself and step away. Here we are with leave it. And leave it also doesn't have to mean leave it completely, but maybe even for a bit, to calm down, to find yourself and to find the acceptance. Also now with the little argument I had before, however, it was causing way more irritation in me, and now after we are talking and I'm distract myself and this I have a little bit of distance with it, okay, I can accept it a little bit better again and brave. And that's probably a process that you maybe are able to shorten, yes, but probably not to skip completely. Never. And that's also fine, because this can be just a way of dealing with things. And it's actually good, to get even your heart rate down, to get your whole body and your system calming down again. Because I think everyone knows it when, for example, at least for office people, let's say you have an email in your inbox that causes some a little bit of anger or frustration in you from your boss, from a client, whoever, and you actually press the answer button and are typing in everything that comes into your mind. Oh, you're an asshole and whatever. Okay, maybe not that extremely, but definitely with a firm tone and expressing everything that's in you. And when you are at least at the point where you are able to not press the send button, but walk away, get your coffee first, probably have a few sips, and then come back to the email, breathe, and then, okay, maybe I'm gonna write it a little bit different. And then you can delete it and start again. And I promise you, it will be another mail.
Guys, listeners, do it for the plot. Send that email. Get fired. Try it. It's fun.
Oh my goodness, so many people will lose their job now.
I've got enough.
Make an email address where the people can send their mails instead to the real client, the bosses.
Oh,
Please
that would
send it
actually,
to us.
send it to us. Send your hate replies to your bosses. Send them to us so we can read them.
blissful@gmail.com.
Yes, send everything you want to get rid of, like rant in your emails, like pretend.
I would love that.
Yeah, let out your frustration in an email. Send it to us, and then you have a relief.
And we're gonna make an episode on that. Not that we're gonna blame you guys. There will be no names, but I definitely would like to have a look at them.
Yeah, and read the best read the best anger emails.
And then I would also like to see the real email that was sent out.
The comparison, like what you wanted to send and what you actually sent.
Exactly. Yeah.
But even if you that's the thing. If you accept yourself, it's also okay to press the send button and get fired and actually let out and be impulsive. And do it for the plot. Do it for the story.
Okay, that's your advice. I take that out of that. That's definitely not mine.
It makes life fun. But maybe only do that if you don't have any responsibilities. Because the only reason why I could do that a lot of the times in my life is because I had no running costs. I don't have a family. I didn't have a partner. I didn't have anyone relying on me except for me. And the only thing I had to do is find another job after that. Sometimes I didn't even have to do that because I had enough savings. So I could just be like, fuck you, and then travel for half a year, which is some of my favorite things to do.
But it's a very, very big privilege, and not everyone is in this situation. And I definitely can understand people who have families, for example, or even if they are by yourself and don't want to lose the job. I can definitely understand that as well. So, yes, there is probably a difference between expressing yourself to yourself or someone else in your friendhood, for example, that can handle it, or your real boss, your real clients, etc. What doesn't mean that you should not stand up for yourself if there is something really wrong. And also, yes, you can confront your boss as well, but the way of doing it and the words you're gonna choose, the communication is very, very important in that. That would be my advice in this situation. You can say everything, but the words you choose are important. My opinion.
Maybe. Opinion, you can only lose a job if you liked it. So if you like it, then there shouldn't be a reason to write the email in the first place. If you hate your job, you can't really lose it. You can be relieved of it if you get fired. Go with the flow. Do whatever you enjoy most. If quitting and writing this, very angry message to your boss feels good to you, go for it. But if you have a family and you have responsibilities, then maybe write us those emails and let out that kind of frustration and anger somewhere else.
There was wasn't it in the German Brau or something? The Kummerkasten? What is it? What is it in English? Can you remember that? Where you can write actually those kind of letters too? Letters at this time, a couple of years ago. But yeah,
There's,
what would it be in English?
I mean, like, I've seen feedback boxes, but that is a boring name. That's not as good as a German name, in my opinion.
No.
There's bother me boxes, still not as good.
Worry box? I don't know. A worry box, or would this be the right translation? Yeah.
Nah, not be. I
Well, you
don't
think
think
about the
there
name.
is,
I actually
but
think,
literally,
yeah, that's probably a good idea. We can do this with our email address. I say it again, blissbuilderspodcast@gmail.com. You're very welcome to send those frustrations. Is yes, they definitely have to get out sometimes. And now a customer is coming. And I probably have to pause that for a second. Okay. I love that we're gonna start the part time of our episode with some laughs. Christina was laughing at me. Because yeah, I always press recording before I clarify some things. Anyway, I'm back because I just had to check in a customer, and now I also have some coffee. So I'm even more satisfied with this little blissful things. And here we go. Our keyword. How to accept things, and actually also about bliss. And for this, I'm gonna ask Christina for a nice summary about our last few minutes, or it was even an hour actually.
So I'm gonna summarize quickly what self-acceptance means for me, and what I think are the key points from our very long conversation, which is basically self-acceptance is a great way to break negative cycles, because as soon as you get, like, in acceptance in general, you are literally pressing the pause button. You're coming back into the present moment, and you can consciously choose the next steps, which are usually to choose to go into a better direction thought-wise. Self-acceptance relieves pressure, takes away a lot of the stressors that we have in life, and helps us to stir ourselves into a direction of love for ourselves in a self-acceptance kind of situation, and acceptance of what is helps us to literally find peace in each present moment, no matter what's happening, and be independent of outside circumstances. Because as soon as you can accept things as they are in the moment, it takes away the pressure and the resistance and the suffering from outside circumstances, because you are kind of like, you can't control outside circumstances, but you can control yourself. And if you can accept it and be in acceptance and be in the present moment, suffering falls away. And that's how I would summarize it. Is there anything I'm missing? probably.
You summarized it amazing. And I would say stopping to suffer. I love it. I mean it. Stop to suffer, or at least reduce it. Stop the pressure, or at least reduce it. And bring you closer to gratitude, actually.
Yeah.
What we were talking before. The main key things about self-acceptance. Maybe the only thing I would like to throw in is also, I mean, we focus mostly on self-acceptance, but it's also acceptance in general and accepting other people's emotions and maybe even their thoughts. So with accepting and being open to receive that actually and let them be gives you also so much peace.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
all right.
Yeah, I would say that's it. Oh, it is what it is. Sorry.
Love it, change it, or leave it.
Exactly.
And also send us your hate emails.
blissbuilderspodcast@gmail.com. Please send it to us and not to your boss.
All right.
Well, unless you don't want to lose your job. Okay.
Do you want to say our social media, or should I?
We can do it together if you like. So let's keep our listeners on track that they should please follow us on all social media platforms. You're going to find us, and that will be Instagram, that will be Spotify, YouTube. What else? We're on Facebook as well, and we're on Patreon. So follow us wherever you can find us.
Yes. Most importantly, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Subscribe where you can. Rate us 5 stars. Just give us 5 stars. And it helps the algorithm to show us to more people. And it helps us to, at some point, not have to do other jobs that we don't like. And we can actually live of this and just talk and have fun, which is the dream. So rate us 5 stars. Subscribe to our channel. Comment. You can comment anything. Like, it doesn't matter as long as you comment, because algorithms love interaction. So thanks for helping us out. Thanks for helping us live our dream. And if you want to do even more, come on Patreon. Join us for a small fee a month. Get extra content. See our cutouts. See like our extra episodes. Get our workbooks. Get our individual coaching sessions. Get involved. Become a part of the Bliss Building community. And love your life. Thanks for listening. Peace out.
Mic drop. Great. Well, you really end the episodes differently than me.
How you gonna say goodbye? Come on, you can't leave our listeners hanging. Say goodbye.
What do you want from me now? At 62.
Well, no. Guys, thanks for listening, guys. We hope to. Well, we can't really see you, but we hope to be. We hope you're listening to our next episodes and follow us on everything. Goodbye. And now, Sandra would like you to end the recording.
I already would have thought is the end and what I'll take.
Yeah, but you need to stop the recording.
I know. I'm just talking to you. It's